Probably, like, people are just getting followed to sleep.
Yeah. Yeah, no, just reading from a script like that is really mundane, and I felt bad for you guys, but there's just so much to
It's
get.
kind of like, it's kind of like, when you go to see a Shakespeare play, and there's no explanation. You're just talking about, oh, British English, and you can fall asleep really soon.
Yeah.
I completely disagree with you.
Oh, come on, man! Come on! Come on,
You did a
man!
really good job.
But you do a good job. You do a good job.
Yeah, really you do.
Yeah, like if I have money, I want to buy your speech.
Oh, I'll sell it to you, man. $20 a copy. Anybody else?
It's like fantastic, phenomenal.
Yeah?
I'm with Ken. I definitely disagree with this.
All right.
I think it was really good. Like, I don't know anything about this stuff, and I definitely feel like I learned a lot. But just from, I think you should spend a little more time on your argument, because even when you were saying things, like, I felt like I was thinking of things to counter your argument. I think that's what generally a historian would do. I mean, when you were talking about how, when you were asking the question, did racism limit Egyptian in daily life, I immediately thought of that play. I don't know if you guys have heard, like, Medea. It's like, I guess, like, a marriage between a Greek person and an Egyptian person, and just the two stereotypes played in the husband and the wife, like, everything negative was Medea, like. But I was just thinking, like, and then even when you brought in Quebec, I was thinking, like, George Grant and, like, the national identity of Canadian, like, he's a historian who studied that, and just, like, his argument on why Quebec is allowed to speak to language or whatever. But, yeah, like, if you were, so you, like, spend a lot more time on your argument, because generally, I think historians would, like, even I don't know anything, but I'm thinking of things to counter your argument, so.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I thought it was really good.
I should pull in a bit more evidence, I suppose, or maybe just flesh out my argument a bit more. Because, like, the interesting thing is, like, these Greeks, their status actually was passed down to, like, these Egyptians, right? And after a while, everybody was kind of like a hybrid Greek-Egyptian. So, you know, if you're going to discriminate against those Egyptians, you know, people born in Egypt who claim to have Greek ancestry, then really you're, like, discriminating against Greeks or what not, you know? So, how can there be discrimination when they're, like, one and the same?
And I don't think you need to apologize either after saying it, because it's good. So.
Oh, did I apologize?
Yes, you do.
Twice you apologize.
So don't apologize. Don't say sorry.
Yeah, that's what my mom does all the time. She's like trying to serve people like, oh, sorry, we only have this kind of case. It's like, you don't have to apologize. You can do anything. I'm gonna go.
Yeah, I think the one thing you have to work on is like, it's a fine line between how much you can cover background information and like add in arguments too, because like if you cut out too much background information, I think the fear is going to be that people are going to ask you more about like what happened, you know what I mean, instead of asking you about your argument instead, right? So I think it'd be best if you can like, if when you're doing that process, being very careful about it, because in the end you want people to ask you about your arguments, not to ask you about like the background information.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, it's kind of counter to your point. I'll take that into consideration, yeah.
At one point, you said when you were bringing in the whole thing about Quebec and Canada, your professor brought that up to you, and you specifically said that you didn't convince your professor. I don't know if you should necessarily say that. Say like, because then it's like, well, someone who read my entire paper didn't agree with it, you know. So I think it's really good that you brought up the Quebec thing, because that puts it into context for a lot of us that don't know any of this history. But maybe you could say, you know, you could say it in a different way than my professor disagreed because of this. You could say my professor brought up this point, and this is why I disagree. You know.
Yeah.
To follow through with this idea now, did you not say after you said that very thing? Did you not continue with? So if you agree with my professor, then I haven't convinced you yet.
Yeah.
Then you give us more, don't you?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that seems like, okay, so maybe if you read this paper the way it was before, you wouldn't agree, but there's more.
Yeah.
So if you can really push that, I think if you read this paper 5 more times before Saturday, you'll find that there are points when you can take your eyes off the paper.
Yeah.
Don't print it again though, just keep it on the same paper. Or draw on it, whatever you need to help you. And when you can do that, then you can use those verbal markers that you've written in, like, so if you agree with my professor, you have it, you know, maybe, you know, this part, whatever. You can kind of look up and really play that up, and your hand gestures to really help us to to follow your arguments.
Mhm.
Maybe it's just because I'm Italian, but it works for me.
Oh, yeah.
Because sometimes when you went like this, and I was, I don't know why, but does that help, or is it just me? It's just me. Never mind. Because there's a bunch of Italians in the room, go for it.
Did you have a comment?
I agree with what Aaron said about maybe rewording the professor's disagreement. And I think you did an excellent job with the paper. And I agree that the background information is definitely necessary because it's so complex and not everyone is as well versed in the history as you are. But I think you have enough time to expand more on your own arguments too, as other people have suggested. And I think there's even more time to elaborate on the two modern historians that you discussed. I think that an elaboration of their ideas and then contrasting it to your own opinion could be helpful too. But it was really good.
Yeah, to summarize this so much. Loriana?
I agree with Amanda. I think you should go more into detail about the two historians and the arguments. I liked how you set it up, how you organized it a lot, and I like how you also talk to us. You don't just read, like you add in, so for, like you kind of include us a little bit into it with a little bit of the background as well. So I like that a lot.
Cool. Martha?
I think you should go against your professor. Like, who cares? Like, you're going against. You said it right in the beginning that you're going against the normal like perspective. You know what I mean? Like, I think in the end you should like acknowledge that that's the normal perspective, and your professor says that. And I say, you know what? I don't believe what he says because it's interpretation, all of it, right? You know what I mean? Like when it comes down to it, how you read the text, and as long as you can prove it, then I'd say why not?
Yeah, he kind of like set up a challenge for me still, so I kind of wanted to get your opinions on whether or not I actually ended up convincing you guys, or if you guys are going to side with like.
I'm a little shady on your final argument, actually, because what doesn't stand out for me, I actually thought you were gonna go with the standard flow and say, yes, but these are the examples of how there was racism. And then when you pulled out that Quebec argument, I was like, so is he, now this is where I got turned around a little bit. So maybe I would read that to another person again, and at the end say, I mean, did anybody else get turned around? When you started with the Quebec argument, I actually thought that what you were arguing was that, yes, of course, there might be structural, on paper, that everyone has access to political leadership. But we all know, as is the example in Quebec, that this is not the case. This is what I thought.
Yeah, that was my strongest criticism.
Yeah, so that's got to be really, really super clear if you want to use it as like a parallel.
So you thought I was arguing that there was discrimination in society?
I thought you were arguing that there was social discrimination, things that we can't see, invisible forms
Yeah.
of social discrimination.
Yeah, I wanted to get into like some parts like the higher officials were like Greek, and then they use their personal bias to like let their friends get into these positions who happen to be Greek as well, but I just couldn't really find a place to fit that in. It's just like these details and nuances which would support my case, but it's like I have other examples like that as well in the military and yada yada, but I kind of have to superficially go over that.
Of
Okay, so
course, yeah. This is normal, by the way. You should know that even at the graduate level, we're producing 20-minute papers from like 6 years of research.
yeah, I feel bad.
Well, no, I'm just saying that this is a hard task for everybody. I totally understand that. One last one, Vanessa, and then Kim.
I have a question. Is it supposed to be 15 max or 15 to 20, the time?
Richard was just saying,
10, I can check my email.
Oh, 10.
sounds like Richard's got inside information.
Oh, good.
It was 15 plus 5-minute question period.
From what I understand, you have 20.
Yeah.
So I was going to say, if we do have more time, then you can add in more of the stuff to take out to make a point that you're trying to make stronger so that people are not going to be really, you know, but if you don't, then yeah, it's up.
All right. I hope this helped you. Do you have another one? Ken?
My comment was just to do with I thought your thesis was very strong and maybe too strong for your evidence. So that you're saying there absolutely was equal opportunity instead of maybe just saying there wasn't abject racism in Egypt. That there was more respect for it.
See, I wanted to divide it because there was racism with some people at the, you know, in day-to-day life, but it wasn't like a program established by the government saying, okay, we're just going to enslave this entire population, kind of like the Americans did, or like the Spanish did with like the South Americans, right? It's like not really colonial empire like
Because
that.
I think your word equal opportunity, you say that right in your main thesis, and I don't know that there was equal